So this chapter will talk about the Mauryan dynasty, how dynasty establishes, the Ashoka's role as a king, development of empire, and also the difference between the kingdom and the empire, the Ashoka's war, inscriptions, message, dhamma, architecture, and also the in last the decline of the Mauryan. So how the Mauryan Empire established? The Maurya Empire. The first ruler was Chandragupta Maurya, the first ruler to unite the people of northern plains. Like whatever the northern plain was consist of, Chandragupta Maurya was the first emperor, or we can say the ruler, who unite all the peoples of the northern plains. He founded the Mauryan dynasty in 321 BC and ruled India for 140 years. Means the whole Mauryan Empire ruled around 140 years over the India. Then the empire's boundaries across the northern plain from the Bay of Bengal to Hind Kush in the north. Then the capital city of this Mauryan Empire was the Patliputra. It was known as the Patliputra. Era of peace, prosperity, and infrastructure. It was we can say that the Mauryan Empire was the era of the peace, the prosperity, the infrastructure. All those come under the Mauryan Empire. Then the conquest of Chandragupta Maurya, that how Chandragupta Maurya started the we can say that he started to develop the or to build the Mauryan Empire. Then the conquest of Punjab in 322 BC. In 321 BC he established the Mauryan Empire. Then he conquered the Punjab in 322 BC. Then conquest of Magad, the biggest empire, in 321 BC. Then defeat of Seleucus, he defeated the Seleucus in 305 BC. Then finally conquest of western India and southern India to develop a vast empire under the Mauryan. The extent of, if we talk about the extent of empire, then his empire was from Himalaya in north to Mysore in south, and from Bengal in east to sea in west, Afghanistan and Balochistan in northwest, and up to the Arabian Sea in the west. So all it consists of a vast empire which consists of the Himalayan range in the north, the Mysore in the south, and also from Bengal in east to the seas in the west, and also the parts of Afghanistan and Balochistan in northwest are under his control. Then the next one is a very big kingdom and empire. It is known as empire. Okay, so the next one is the next one is a very big kingdom, that is empire, the Ashoka. Ashoka was we can say that one of the greatest rulers of history, ruled empire. He founded by his grandfather Chandragupta Maurya over 2300 years ago from now. We can say that 23 years ago from now, he was one of the greatest ruler of the Mauryan Empire. He is known as the one of the greatest ruler of the Mauryan Empire. He was supported by a wise man named Chanakya, or we can say the Kautil. He was minister in the court of Ashoka, and he was firmly supported, and the policies which were framed during his time were guided by the Chanakya or Kautil. Chanakya ideas were written down in Arthashastra. Arthashastra was a book in which how the kingdom should be governed, how the kingdom should be organized. All these things were written in Arthashastra by Chanakya. Then there were several cities in the empire marked with black dots on the map, which include the capital Patliputra, Takshashila, and Ujjain. Takshashila was known as for his education center at that time, and also the Ujjain well as a gateway to the northwest, including Central Asia. Means that Ujjain was basically जो उज्जैन था उसको एज अ गेटवे बोला जाता था नॉर्थ वेस्ट का, इंक्लूडिंग द सेंट्रल एशिया ऑल्सो. इट कनेक्ट्स द इंडिया और द मॉडर्न एम्पायर विद द सेंट्रल एशिया. Then if we direct Ujjain lay on the route from north to south India, means that Ujjain जो था वो एक रूट बनाता था नॉर्थ और साउथ को कनेक्ट करने का. एक द मर्चेंट्स, द ऑफिसर्स एंड क्राफ्ट पर्सन लिव्ड इन दीज सिटीज़. सो बेसिकली जो सिटीज़ थी वहाँ पे जो लोग थे वो बेसिकली मर्चेंट्स थे, ऑफिशियल्स थे, जो क्राफ्ट पर्सन थे, जो बिजनेस करते थे, वो लोग वहाँ पे रुकते थे. इन अदर एरियाज लाइक सम विलेजेस ऑफ फार्मर्स एंड हंटर्स वर ऑल्सो देयर. We can say that the villages of the farmers and the herders were also there in some areas. So people in different parts of the empire spoke different languages and ate different kinds of food. So there are a vast variety of language, the culture the people followed in various parts of the India, as it was having the vast empire under the Mauryan influence. So the people are in different parts of the empire spoke different languages. Like if we talk about the Magad, the Patilputra, then there is Magdi, Prakriti were very common languages. And if we talk about south, then there was Tamil and Kerala language was there also. So people in different parts of the empire spoke different languages and ate different kinds of food. Then ruling the empire, that how we can say that how the empire is ruled, how it is governed. The vast empire, it was difficult to govern at all the points. So how it was ruled. So a large empire in different parts were ruled differently, means that different parts were ruled differently. The area around Patilputra was under the direct control of the emperor, means that the area around the capital city of Mauryan empire, that is Patilputra, was ruled directly, controlled by the emperor, or we can say that the king. Then officials were appointed to collect taxes from farmers, herders, craftspersons and traders lived in village and towns in the area. Basically to run the government, to run the administration, and also to manage the expenditure of the army, the management of the things. Then these officials were appointed to collect taxes from farmers, herders, craftspersons and traders lived in villages and towns in the area. Then they also punished those who disobeyed the ruler's orders. Officials were given salaries. Messengers went to and fro. Means that who does not obey the ruler's rule, or we can say that who does not obey the rulers, then they all, the officials have the right to punish them also, and some officials were given the salaries for that. Then other areas or provinces were ruled from the provincial capital such as Takshashila or Ujjain, means that the other areas which are far away from the capital city Patilputra. So these areas were basically governed or ruled from the provincial capital, means that that connecting capitals which were there, like Takshashila, the education center, and the Ujjain, which was a gateway to connect the north and the south. So basically these were ruled from these areas were known as provincial capitals, and those other areas which are far away from the Patilputra city were ruled by these provincial capitals, with some amount of control from Patilputra. And the royal princes were often sent as governors, means that those were the sons of the king who is ruling over the Patilputra, sent their princes as a governor to these local areas. Then local customs and rules were probably followed, and there were vast areas between these centers. So local customs and rules were also probably followed in that areas. Mauryas tried to control roads and rivers important for transport, means that what the administration was there. So according to the Kautilya, the Mauryans tried to control the roads and the rivers, which were the important mode of transport, and through those control they also control the trade and impose the taxes, which gives them the expenditure and to manage their army expenditure also. They collected whatever resources were available as tax and tribute, means that whatever resources were present in that area, they means they establish the control over that and collect the taxes from those areas. And then Ashoka, a unique ruler, means that Ashoka, unique ruler, means we can send it. The famous Mauryan ruler Ashoka was the first ruler who tried to take his message to the people through encryption, means that we can say that Ashoka was the first ruler who tried to communicate with the people, try to interact with the people, and try to means establish a relationship with the rulers. So he was very fond of encryption, so he written down lots of encryptions in that time. These encryptions were in Prakrit language also and written in the Brahmi script also. Means that they are in the Prakrit language and written in the Brahmi script also. Then the Ashoka's war in Kalinga. How this Kalinga war is known as a change phase in the life of Ashoka, and after this Kalinga war, he gave up the war, and he became the first ruler who gave up the war because of what was a massacre created in the war of Kalinga. Because of that, he gave up the war. Kalinga was the ancient name of coastal Orissa. Ashoka fought a war to conquer Kalinga. He was horrified when he saw the violence and the bloodshed, and so decided not to fight any more wars. So basically, this was the reason that after seeing the lots of violence and bloodshed in that Kalinga war, so he was very horrified. So he decided not to fight any more wars. He is the only king in the history of the world who gave up conquest after winning a war. Means whatever he conquests, he gave up. He simply gave up because of the horrified conditions, the bloodshed which was occurred due to this Kalinga war. Now, what was Ashoka's dhammas? After when Ashoka gave up the war after Kalinga, then he gave a dhamma. Means that and that was known as Ashoka's dhamma. So according to that, Ashoka's dhamma did not involve worship of a god or performance of a sacrifice. Means that do not means involve ourselves in the worship of god in a kind of any activity or the performance of a sacrifice. He had a duty to instruct his subjects and was also inspired by the teachings of the Buddha. So basically, he was very much inspired by the teachings of the Buddha. The number of problems troubled him. The people in the empire followed different religions which led to conflict. So basically, what was the main motive behind giving the Ashoka's dhamma was that he don't want any conflict between the people because of their religions, because there was vast variety of people living in the area and they are following different religions and their cultures and customs. So because of that, there was so many conflict between the people. So he decided to give his dhamma that did not involve in any worship of god, and also do not involve ourselves in any conflict based on the religion. And then animals were sacrificed, slaves and servants were ill-treated, quarrels in families and amongst neighbors. These all things should not be followed or should be avoided. Means that animals were sacrificed, so do not kill the animals. And slaves and servants were ill-treated, they should be treated kindly. So these were some basic motives behind giving the Ashoka's dhamma. Then Ashoka's duty was to solve these problems. So he appointed officials known as the Dhamma Mahamata. Means that these officials were known as the Dhamma. We can say that the Dhamma Mahatma who went from place to place teaching people about Dhamma. Means that to solve these problems, the animals were sacrificed, the slaves and servants were ill-treated, quarrels in the families and lots of conflict because of the religion. So to solve these problems, he appointed officials known as Dhamma Mahatma who went from place to place teaching people about dhamma, that follow the dhamma, what is the concept of dhamma, all these things. His messages were inscribed on the rock and pillars, and also his messages were inscribed on the rocks and the pillars. He instructed his officials to read his message to those who could not read it themselves. He also instructed his officials, whom he appointed as Dhamma Mahatma, to read his message to those who could not read it themselves. He also sent messengers to spread ideas about Dhamma to other countries also, to other lands also, such as Syria, Egypt, Greece and Sri Lanka at that time. He built roads, dug wells and built rest houses and arranged for medical treatment for both human beings and animals. So basically, he adopted a new we can say that new policy of ruling, which to build roads, to dug wells and to build rest houses to arrange the medical treatment for both human beings and animals. Then why Ashoka gave his Dhamma? Means what was the basic motive about giving the Ashoka's his Dhamma? That different religions having conflict. So because of these conflict, there are lots of violence in the society. So to avoid that violence, he gave his Dhamma. Animal slaughtering was lot of animal were killed in the name of the god, in the name of the sacrifice to the god. So ill treatment to slaves and servants, quarrels among families, spreading so basically spreading dhamma by two ways: through inscriptions on rocks and pillars. So basically what Ashoka followed, two ways, means two ways to spreading his dhamma by to the people. The first one is through inscriptions on rocks and pillars, and the second one is the through messenger to different parts of the world such as Syria, Egypt, Greece and Sri Lanka. And also what are the main principles? We can say that the main principles of the dhamma principles were, the main principle of dhamma were non-violence, tolerance to all sects, obedience to parents, respect for brahmins, teachers and priests, liberally towards friends, and humane treatment of servants, means ill treatment of servant and slaves should be avoided. So these were the basic principles of the dhamma. Then what are the reasons for decline of Mauryan Empire? So there basically the main reason was known for the decline of Mauryan Empire was the religious policy followed by the Ashoka. So because of that ban on the animal slaughtering and also the sacrifices done in the by the Brahmins, so it creates a huge huge disappointment in the section of Brahmins. So the religious policy of Ashoka was responsible for the decline of Mauryan Empire. The other one was the huge expenditure on army and bureaucracy, means that there was lots of there was a big army to govern or to manage the vast empire. So the huge expenditure on that army and bureaucracy also was the one of the reason of decline of the Mauryan Empire. Then oppressive rule in provinces, some provinces having oppressive rules. Then neglect of northwest frontiers, which caused the foreigner attacks on India. Then the Brahminical reaction towards this policy related to Brahmins, that means banning the slaughtering of the animals, banning the sacrifices of the rituals done in the Brahmins. Then decline of the Mauryan Empire, basically economic crisis followed death of Ashoka. After the death of Ashoka, what were the economical crisis were there? So that was the basic decline of the Mauryan Empire. Then high costs of bureaucracy, military not supported by the tax revenue, frequent we can say that frequent dissolution of currency to pay salaries. Religions began to abandon Mauryan Empire, disappears by 185 BC. Then also the central provision was the Magad. The first decline was started from that Magad. Then southern was Dakshipatha, Swarnagiri. Then western is Avantipatha, Ujjain. And northern was Uttarpatha, Takshashila. And eastern was Pratyapatha, that is Tosli or Kalinga. So I think these were the reasons for the decline of the Mauryan Empire. So I hope that you all will learn this lesson, and it was nice for you to take further step in your preparation. Thank you so much.